In this episode of BEA Conversations on Mental Fitness to Leadership, we are speaking to Elaine Lau, Managing Director of La Global Travel. Elaine is here to speak with us on stress. Yes, that's right, people. Stress, the poor love, tend to have a bit of a bad reputation, and when it's like a key word that people run away from. So, welcome to the conversation, Elaine. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Elle?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for making time. I know that we are doing this in the middle of a unexpected lockdown in Kuala Lumpur, and I'm sure you are in frequent conversations with your customers, with your partners, shifting things, connecting with your team. So we really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Now, is stress good or bad for you? Why?
I think that's something people don't talk about a lot, isn't it? I think it really depends how well the stress is managed. I think in general, too much stress is never a good thing because if it's not managed well, it can really throw us off balance. And when that happens, it really impairs our ability to make decisions. And sometimes we lose sight of situational awareness. But on the flip side, more often than not, stress can actually help induce enough pressure to get things done, to sort of motivate you to focus on the task at hand. And so for me, stress is not really a bad thing. Usually a lot of stress originates from work demands. And for me personally, work demands are what spurs me. I get challenged by these demands. And maybe because of my innate nature of being a planner, it really keeps me on my toes to use that stress to overcome situations the best way I know how. So ironically, the more stressed I feel sometimes, the more I want to overcome a challenge or complete a job, which obviously, anyone in that situation, it gives you a sense of achievement and that much satisfaction.
Yeah, brilliant way of thinking. Can I ask, if you don't mind sharing with us, what stresses you out at work at the moment?
Oh, there are so many. I think right now the most glaring source of stress for me is obviously ensuring the continuity of my company to be able to, ride through these tough times, to stay relevant to our clients who understandably at this point is not planning any incentive travels anytime soon. And we're looking, at that piece of business to come back probably steadily only Q2 or Q3 of next year, which means at this moment now we have to think of various ways to offer solutions to what our clients' current needs. So those are quite stressful at times. But most of all, for me, I think I do get stressed about protecting my team. And for as much as possible, I think, I'm really holding off any pay cuts or downsizing, which thankfully for now we're in the position not to be able not to implement any of that. Personally, for me, that's some small achievement that I'm quite happy with. But I think for a lot of leaders, a large part of their responsibility is really managing the team. So for me, that's the same. And inevitably, sometimes we also take on that stress. We find ourselves taking on that stress that the team may be having. When work gets a bit too much, a bit too fast, and deadlines become too soon or too overwhelming. So that pressure is on us at times, to try and mitigate that stress. So that alone can be stressful for leaders. But I think as with everyone else, leaders, they deal with daily stress, operational stress. But on top of that, we also have financial stress, trying to manage cash flow. We have to manage not just the team, but, we have to manage accounting, taxes, most of all, seeing the stress of our vision go through, both short-term and long-term, the big picture, the end goal to basically ensure the survival of the company. A lot of times between leaders, we can talk about all those things. And that's why those kind of stress are important as leaders to understand.
I first have to commend you on, maintaining the salary levels and the number of team members that you have, supporting their livelihood. So it's your efforts and your your care for them is really, really commendable at very stressful times. I think from
Thank you.
since knowing you and meeting you, what I've always found when I'm around you, you always have that positivity, and you always see things in a positive light. You try not to be taken too far by feeling overly emotional. You're very, very balanced. So, I think when we hear things put in a positive outlook, where do we find where is the point where we can maintain realism, and because you can be overly positive and the reality says everything else. So how do you balance that when stress become unrealistically positive?
Wow, that's actually a very good question. So, sometimes, like, when you mentioned just now, stress can be good and can be bad. I think too much of good stress is also bad. But it's at the end of the day, I think it's all about keeping a balance, where my work is concerned, or the business is concerned. I do my best to cover as much grounds as possible. And, when there are holes or gaps that needs to be filled, I do that to the very last detail, because that actually keeps me sane and calm. So there's good stress, there's also bad stress, but remembering that things have to always move on, because dwelling into stress is very counterproductive. Being stressed for a long period of time is really bad. And for those times where, difficult for me to control, or scenarios that I can't plan for, I just have to remind myself, there's really no point stressing over it, and I can be productive doing something else. So that's really how my state of mind is, and I try to translate that to the team as much as I can as well. Yeah.
For a balanced person and a very fair leader, what kinds of stress do you say no to?
What kinds of stress do I say no to? Well, I feel stress is something that's that one should embrace. That's part and parcel of life, part and parcel of work. Of course, it takes time to identify, to understand, and to a certain extent come to terms with it. So as a planner, we are accustomed to managing changes all the time, to foresee and to predict any possible risk. We're constantly thinking of plan B, plan C, for any outcomes, and this is to better manage the current and the future stress. And we do this so we have a greater sense of control, in my opinion, and that we don't crack under pressure.
Yeah,
I think that's very important. And I've learned that, if stress gets the better of us, it's really hard to see the silver lining in difficult situations, right? I think maybe you'll agree.
Yeah, to a certain extent, but there are certain stress that I'll definitely say no to, like knowing now that I have we have restructured and we have a smaller team. I also need to be very realistic about our capacities and capabilities, and what not to take on that will not induce positivity or positive stress during a certain period of time where we are in relatively high demand per se. But of course, when we are in low demand, then it still needs a conversation to make sure that the team is ready to embrace that journey, because obviously there's a lot of uncertainty, right? And whatever that we do at the moment, obviously is of the best of intention. Often than not, there is still a lot of communication breakdown. There is still a lot of expectations, misalignment, especially when it comes to technical capabilities and what's available out there. So for me, I try to be quite conscious. I do move from, like, I would say time to time, I'm like very like positive. At times I just go, oh my God, I can't even get that done today. So I do try to balance it out and be as real as possible, because I need to have the way I am, I need to have the want to complete something. If I haven't got the want, it's so hard for me to get anything done. Like you say, it's counterproductive for me.
Yeah, and what you brought up is something that's very personal to you. That's your nature, right? And there's, I think, no right or wrong way. So at times I feel like I need to do something else that's very different from work. But more often than not, because work is such a big part of my life and I really love, what I do. So I find that, I counter that stress, ironically, by working on the problems. So that may not work with a lot of people. And everyone they do it their own way. Some people go away for a vacation just to reset for a retreat and come back, and they come back with a fresh perspective, and that works for people. So I think it's all about doing things your own way. You know yourself best.
Yeah.
No one else knows you as well as you do, and I think sometimes for you, I've been seeing your culinary journey. It's so interesting, and I'm so happy that you found that can I say your calling, and it looks great.
New calling. I have to say that I always make it very clear to everyone. Perhaps I'm really better at food styling. I think the taste will follow suit. But I do have a few friends who has been tasting my food, and they are relatively happy and so forth. So from a taste perspective, I'm not that confident yet. But from a food styling, it has been really, really fun. Now, Elaine, I see I've been watching your organization on social media. And I think a few months ago, you and your team mates started doing a lot of, I would say, charity work, supporting the society. So how has that experience helped the future leaders within your company cope with stress?
Okay, so thanks for noticing that. Well, the reason why we started it, our first project was in June. We call it the Global Gives Back project, and it's going to be a little bit of a series. So the first one that we did was back in June, where the lockdown was in its second phase, towards the end of the second phase. So a lot of people have been furloughed, retrenched, they've lost their jobs, families from the low-income families have lost their income. So for me, personally, I do a little bit of charity on the side, and I've seen that things got really out of hand for some of them. And I feel that, we are really, really so blessed. And for the past few years, my team, myself, we've been really, really blessed. We've been able to experience so many different things around the world. And I feel that when things become rough, when things are really bad, I think those times are the most important for us to remember that other people are struggling a lot more than us. And that's where you really need to show a lot more kindness, show a lot more generosity than you would normally do. So we want to kind of balance that gratitude and try and help out others with what we can. So we did that with 300 people and gave them a month's supply of essential needs. So we had to source out some of the areas where some of this neighborhood had the most B40 low-income family people. And our second project was with the native kids, our Orang Asli kids. So they themselves have also been living in very basic conditions, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to see what are the options in their future careers that they can think of, that they can dream of. And we took them to Kidzania, where they can play any occupation for a while, for a day, and they had a really good time. And I think it changed a lot of perspective. So in terms of doing that, helping others, you'd be surprised that inner sense of happiness, it really, really brings so much joy when you see that little bit of kindness goes a long way for other people, that, those opportunities don't come a lot for them. And the contributions may not be large, may not be big, but and you can see that they are appreciative. So having remembered that and going through your everyday stress, everyday work, to see them and remember them, it helps you focus as well as at work, to remember what's important and focus on all the little things.
What impact did it have on your team members?
So I try to share with them that in everything that we do, we don't take for granted. We remember what's important. At work, we always have to be professional. We think of what works best with the client. We think of all possible ways to exceed expectations wherever possible we can within our means. But at the same time, also remember that we can make an impact in what we do. So when we travel, we support local communities in what we do, and try and contribute to what the country that we're visiting with what they would need. So everything that we do with our client, we try to do a little bit of a sustainability project, a little bit of a CSR project to try and communicate with the local people and help them with what they need.
Perfect. I think that is so important. I think doing good is a form of mental fitness in action, and that it helps us think beyond ourselves, our own needs, our company's requirements. It really reaches out to more impactful work.
I think so too.
Yeah. Well, Elaine, thank you so much for your time. This has been a great insight to understand from someone that is so balanced in terms of the approach to challenges or to stressful times at work. We wish you all the very best. Our sincere regards to you, your family, and your team members. Hoping that everything will go okay during this lockdown. And feel free to reach out to us if we outside the lockdown zone can be of any help to you.
Thank you so much, Al. Same to you too.
Take care.
Take care.